Alright, so here we're gonna retouch the CGI rendering. Now what I did was I added two more render elements in Corona. One is called Corona Beauty, the other one's Corona Bloom and Glare. And what that allows me to do is to separate the beauty pass without the flares and stuff baked into it. So there's that. Now I'm just dragging and dropping the Bloom and Glare one. There we go. Now we're gonna drag and drop the caustics. There we go. Now I'm going to drag and drop all the alphas, which is masks 1 through 4. And when I say 1 through 4, I mean 0 through 4, so that's 5 total, like so. And then last but not least is the normal shading. There we go. Now that we have that, I'm going to go to merge or mode 16-bit. I usually like to retouch in 16-bit for the full dynamic range of the roll of the normals pass. So this is how we're going to do things. Right now we have our background, which is the base layer. I'm going to hold control, press on alpha 1, and that's our car alpha. I'm going to duplicate it. There we go. Now we have our car isolated on its own layer. Perfect. So the next thing we have is the caustics. I'm going to drag this one underneath, place it here, change it to screen. Now we have our caustics. I'm going to create an alpha and just gently brush away a little bit, just so it's not too dominating in the scene. And this is all very subjective. This is where now your creative opinion comes into play. You don't have to do it like so. I'm just doing this to kind of get it to where I'm happy with it. Now what I will do is add a hue saturation, hold alt, click low, colorize, gonna make it go to yellow, saturate it like so, invert it so it's black, and then what I'm gonna do is just gently brush it in right in here to kind of give it off that little yellow hue from the lip and the side skirt. Like so. Nothing too crazy, just a little bit. Just so we get a sense of color in there. Alright. So bloom and glare. Change this to a screen blend mode. There we go. What I'll do is I'll duplicate it, create an alpha, and then go in and brush it in on the headlights. Just give it a little bit of more blingage. There we go. All right, now we're gonna open up the front end. So to do this, what I'll do is I'll open up the beauty pass, and for the time being, I'll save this one as Lambo working. There we go. So we're gonna save that file. That way we could open up the beauty render again as a new document, and then we'll wait for this to save real quick. And working in 16-bit, it generates a larger file size. So what you can do is once you're done retouching, just bring it down to 8-bit and save it. That way it'll be a quick save. The only thing that 16-bit allows us to do is when we do select by color range on the normals, it doesn't generate pixelated visuals. And you'll see what I mean by that. All right, so now that we have that done, we're in Lambo working, we're gonna open up this one again. Add an exposure because we're working in 32-bit. And this has full dynamic range where we could go really dark with it like you see here, or we go really bright with it and open up the shadows as you see. So typically we'll do this. We're gonna copy this overexposed layer and we'll just paste it above the car. And then what we'll do is, so I want the car paint. So this is how the RGB works. We have it visible, you hold control and you just press either red, green, or blue. So I'm gonna do the red, and this just selected only the red channel. Now I'm just gonna select that, and what I'll do is I'll just move it underneath. Name it overexposed. There we go. And so this is how the normals comes into play. So you turn this on, and first things first is I'll just select this, and I'll actually go in, add a selection because as you can see the windows are semi-transparent. I want to make sure my normals is a full solid like that, and then I'll just duplicate this, create a new layer, fill it in black. All right, so now let's say we have our hood and we just want to open this whole area up a little more. So we're going to select the normals, do a color range, going to select it, let's say from this angle. Then you just turn down the fuzziness, kind of like that, like so. And now this overexposed area, which is Control I, we just opened up that area based on the angle. So as you can see, it's almost like we just added our own fake light in post. When you do photography, you obviously don't get a normals pass, so you would have to manually go and mask out the edges, make sure the shadow side doesn't, expose. With CGI using the normals pass, we legitimately could select a rim light area. So you can select it right here and isolate it. So this is the power of the normals pass. Like let's say we want to go in, select this, and we're going to darken in this whole little region. Go in, add an exposure adjustment, dark it in. I usually just add a quick group, alpha, and then we can just brush in the shadow side. And this is the way you could really show the shapes of a car in post without having to re-render anything or add any more light sources while prepping the data. So what I would want to do is I want to really show off this highlight, show off the strong line the hood has. So I'll just select this area. I'll go in, kind of like that. Maybe select a little wider range. And then what I'll do is add an exposure modifier. So as you can see, there we go. I'm gonna group that and just go in and just brush it in gently. This is where we're probably gonna have to fake it a little bit just to help sell that strong body line, like so. And then I don't really want any of this other stuff, so I'm just gonna change it, brush it in. There we go. So now we open that up, and I only want the car paint. So what I'll do is select that, invert selection, fill it in with black, so that way it's just the sheet metal, which is the carbon fiber. So going forward, we could open up this area a little bit. So we'll select this, color range, select it like so. We'll just kind of go right in here, like that. We'll go in, add an exposure, and just open it up, like that. Again, car paint, group it, like so. Then I'll just group it again, and just gently brush it into only where I want it, which is this bottom portion. Like so. There we go. All right. So now we're getting a little bit more shape out of the car. Now let's say we want to open up these yellows. I'll just go in, hold control press on the green. There we go. Now I'll go in, add a curves adjustment layer, and just open up the yellows some. Add a little bit of contrast. Probably the same thing to the sheet metal. So darken the blacks, open them up. So now we have a little more juice over there. So now what I do want to do is I want to open up that gold badge. So we'll find a render element that has the gold, which is the green. Deselect that, go to exposure, open it up. There we go. Now our Cadillac badge is showing up. Now I think we had the headlights as an alpha. There we go. So I'll go in again, just above the car layer, but underneath the bloom and glare, so we could just open up only the headlights, like so. There we go. Things are looking good. Now let's see if we want to fake any other things. So what I would like to do is show a little more shape of the mirror to separate it from the window. So first thing we'll do, so that's going to be the red alpha channel. So let's see what happens when we do the normal selection. Perfect. So as you can see, it's given us a perfect selection based on this angle. We'll just open it up like so. There we go. And now we'll add another, and actually what we'll do is we'll snag this overexposed thing. Just press Ctrl J with that selection mode. And this is just duplicating that. And now we'll create an alpha and just brush it in right there, like so. And then that, let's see where that glare's coming from. So that is the mirror. So the rubber's kind of getting washed out, so I'll just select the rubber alpha there. Deselect this, add a curve, and just darken that. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more juice to our windows. So let's go to green. There we go. All right, so that's starting to come together. Now we have all that. Now what we want to do is add a final little cool tone to it. So add a little bit of blue to this shot, kind of like that. Go into the reds, lower the reds. See what taking down the green will do. Maybe add some green in the shadows, just a hint. Go back to the blues, add a little bit of more blue in the shadow, just really cool it off. Like so. And then let's see what would happen if we just open up this area just a little bit more. So select by color range, like this. We'll just take this overexposed, duplicate that again, bring it in here, invert the selection, and just brush it in, just so we show a little bit more of that shape, some of that detail. So if we hide and unhide, as you can see, we're just showing off some of that body line, just visually selling the design elements. So let's see what happens to the mirror. I do like what it did there, so we'll just go in and brush some of it up here, like that. The base glare is getting a little too fuzzy for me, so I'll add a curve on top of that, make a selection, and just add a little bit of contrast to that so it becomes a little more crisp. There we go. And then I will also make it an alpha and probably tone it down right there. Maybe just give it a little bit of juice right on the tip, not too much. All right, there we go. And now, last but not least, what I like to do is I use this plugin called Color Effects Pro from Alien Skin, or it's called Exposure X, sorry. And this is just how I usually do a final finish on my stuff. It's just sliders, it makes life easy for me. So I'm giving it some contrast, some clarity, some saturation, a little bit of highlight, a little bit of glare, glow, nothing too crazy, a little bit of grain to the image, tone it down. So there we go. And actually, before I add that final finish, what I'll do is go in, create a new layer, go to my little smoke brush, and add a hint of smoke behind the car, like so. So I'm just gonna make it 20%, and like so. Then invert that, and just brush it in. I'm just clicking away. I have a tablet, but I'm not using it for this purpose. All right. And then what we'll do is add a hue saturation on the bottom of this, colorize it, make sure it's red, darken it a bit, then make sure we see more of that smoke behind the car. Go into here, really crank it up around the edges. Go into the alpha, tone it down some so we get some detail in the shape, some of that wispiness, like so. All right, and then the reason why I did the hue saturation, I'm going to invert it, and then I'm just going to brush it into where the lights are to kind of show that glare coming off the, or the glow emissively coming off from the tail lights. Now you could do this in CGI or you could just do this in post, like so. And then what I'll do is I'll add another one. Oh, it's color balance, whoops. Another hue saturation, make sure it only affects the smoke. Colorize, I'm just gonna give it a cool tone like this. Kind of like that. Again, I'm gonna invert it and just give this a little bit of color around the edges. Just so we get some fun tones in the smoke. Just like that. All right. Copy merge, paste that on top, throw that filter back on it. There we go. And then we'll add another layer and just some black smoke to really darken the edges of the image. And so that in a nutshell is retouching a CGI image with all the render elements we created. Very quick, very simple, and it saves a whole lot of time with all the alphas that you don't have to create yourself.